If you're not sleeping in a quilt, are you even sleeping? We're going to talk quilts and sleep systems. Let's get into it. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to the channel. Thanks for checking out this video. In this one, we're going to be talking about quilts, and specifically the Zenbivy Light Quilt System. The 10 degree is what I have here. But before we dive into all of the details on the Zenbivy system, I'm just going to give you a quick rundown of what I've been using in the past and some of the challenges that I've had with them. So like a lot of folks, I've done a lot of camping, and I started off just using regular sleeping bags. Over the course of time, and as I've done other trips in the colder climates, I ended up going with mummy bags, and I just never really was getting the sleep that I wanted to get while I was out camping in those scenarios. And one of the main reasons is that I'm a side sleeper and obviously a bit of a bigger dude. So laying on my side in those sleeping bags, in the mummy bags especially, they were just always too tight and constricting. Really tight around my shoulders, tight around the hips and legs, and I just couldn't move and get comfortable, and that prevented me from sleeping well in so many different scenarios. So I started exploring quilts, especially as I kind of got into ultralight backpacking and trying to reduce my pack weight. Quilts are a great way to do that because they remove a lot of material from the backside. When you're using a sleeping bag and you're laying with your back on the material that's on the backside, you're compressing all of that insulation down. And the warmth comes from all that air getting trapped in the insulation in that down layer. So when you compress it, it's not really providing any insulation at all. And so that bit of material on the sleeping bag that's under your back while you're laying on it is virtually useless. So a quilt's like, okay, let's just get rid of all that. We save weight, we're not wasting material, that's not providing any value. Great. So that's kind of one of the real advantages of a quilt. And then of course it's more open, like a blanket, up on your shoulders, and that allows you to roll and sleep on your side and be super comfortable. So that's a huge advantage of the quilt system, in my opinion. Now, before we dive into Zenbivy, let's talk about what I was using previously. Alright, so this is the Sierra Designs Nitro 20 degree quilt. That 20 degree designation is the limit rating. Comfort rating is right around 32 degrees. I've used this in all different kinds of temperatures and conditions and have really enjoyed using this quilt. Now, the reason I ended up kind of looking for something else is there are some downsides and some drawbacks on this particular model. First of all, it's just not quite long enough and not quite wide enough for me personally. They just have one kind of regular size of this quilt. I've never seen any sort of extra long or extra wide version available, and it's just not quite wide enough, so when I'm turning, rolling in my sleep, a lot of times one of these sides will lift up a little bit, not quite cover my entire back, and then I'll get a draft. That'll wake me up. That's probably most people's biggest complaint with quilts is the drafts. So that's pretty much a problem of not having a properly sized quilt that's big enough to have enough material to where when you roll, it's not going to lift up and cause those cold spots. The other thing that I was never really super happy with is this enclosed foot box. Tons of quilts have this design, and it's just this enclosed foot box here where you can just stuff your feet down here in the bottom. Very similar size to a mummy bag. So I didn't necessarily like how tight it was for my feet down there. And then if you get too warm and you want to kick your feet out, you got to do it a little higher up, and then you got this foot box just kind of flopping around on you all over the place. So that was kind of a downside there. One of the cool features of this particular quilt is that it has this little head hole hoodie thing. So if you're using it in really cold temps, you can slide this up over your head. You can breathe out here, and then you got a nice warm down hoodie basically for your head. So that's a cool feature, but it didn't really work all that well for me because when I slid down far enough to get my head in here, my feet were crammed up against the bottom of the foot box, and that just wasn't comfortable for me. One of the other things that I really like is that it's got these little hand pockets on the corners, so you can kind of get your hands in here and then just totally get all wrapped up, and kind of keeps, if you're on your side, it kind of keeps all this together, which is a pretty cool feature. I wish the Zenbivy had this little feature on there. I really like it. Other than that, there's no real major complaints. I think if I had this particular quilt in a little bit bigger of a size, I probably would never have been looking for a different solution. It would have been just fine for my needs. Aside from that little foot box issue, nothing too major. So this quilt is about $250, so it's a little bit cheaper than the Zenbivy. It's a lot cheaper than a lot of the ultralight quilts, and it's actually relatively lightweight compared to a lot of sleeping bags and a lot of other things, especially at the price point. So like I said, really like this one, but just had a few issues that weren't quite making it work well for me. So as we look back at the Zenbivy now, they have a kind of a complete system that includes the quilt, this fitted top sheet as they call it, and then the sleeping pad here underneath. It's a really interesting, innovative system that kind of combines all of those components into something that I think is a little bit unique in the marketplace and provides a certain level of comfort on your sleep that a lot of other folks aren't providing. Now, to be completely honest, I haven't used it in this full setup. Couple of the trips where I was planning on it got canceled for one reason or another, and so I've pretty much only used the quilt over the course of my 2022 hunting season. But I'm really interested in actually putting the full system to use and seeing how it goes. As you can see, the quilt itself hooks in to the top sheet here, and so you can have your pillow in here and then kind of snug all this up, and then because it's connected to the top sheet, make sure you have all that coverage on your side so you're not getting those cold spots. And then because the sheet is attached to the sleeping pad, as you can see here underneath, that was strapped across, it helps keep everything kind of in place, and again, preventing drafts, preventing those cold spots. So that's pretty cool. The biggest thing that I love about this Zenbivy quilt and this particular model is that it opens up completely on the feet here. So it's essentially a huge down blanket that you can also, through the same kind of hook and loop system, close up the foot box, cinch it down, and have an enclosed foot box on your quilt, or when it's warmer, you can kick this open and just use that as a blanket. Now, I got this, I want to say in June or July, and so I started using it during the fall hunting season, used it throughout the entire fall 2022 fall hunting season in various temperature ranges, from warm to hot, all the way down to pretty cold, below freezing, and I absolutely loved it. I love the versatility of having that open foot box. I love being able to close it up when it's cold, and it's just really been an awesome system for me. It's pretty easy. All of these loops are color coded, so you just find the right color, hook it on, cinch it up, you're good to go. And it's been great. Now, Zenbivy has chosen to use a 20D on both the outer and this inner part, and it's interesting. It's a little bit heavier, but it's kind of a smoother and more comfortable material against your skin. That's one thing I did notice the difference between the Sierra Designs and the Zenbivy. And when you move into the ultralight stuff, it's like a 10D. I think there's some that are like 7D, super thin, lightweight. That can kind of get a little bit clammy against your skin, not quite feel super comfortable. And like I said, I did notice the difference between that on the Sierra Designs and this one. So super comfortable against your skin, and again, super warm. Now I will say, with the 10 degree is the survival limit. It's a 20-degree comfort limit. I found those ratings, at least the comfort limit, to be pretty accurate. I've used this in sub-freezing temperatures, with the foot box closed, no socks, just one base layer of clothing, and was completely roasty toasty. So definitely will keep you warm on those cold nights. And then of course, open up the foot box completely and you're good to go on those warmer days. Now I will say, if it's going to be above 60 degrees, 70 degrees at night, this is just going to be a little too warm even in blanket mode. So for those kind of spring hunts, springtime scouting trips, summertime scouting trips, those sorts of things, you probably want to go a little bit lighter, maybe to their 30, or I think they maybe have a 45-degree quilt as well. So you might want to have something really lightweight for the summertime, and then you can probably get away with this one for the other 3 seasons. So yeah, as a system, it's really good. For the sleeping pad, me personally, I've been using the Sea Summit Etherlight XT. I went with that particular sleeping pad because it was really well reviewed amongst other side sleepers. I don't know how this Zenbivy sleeping pad is going to perform for a side sleeper. If you've used it and leave a comment down below. That's something I'm interested to try out. I've had a lot of issues with sleeping pads over the years, just not being quite thick enough and comfortable enough. So at this time I can't give you my opinion on the Zenbivy sleeping pad specifically, but hopefully I'll have a chance to use it soon and we'll update the review at that point. So this particular Zenbivy quilt comes in at right around $350. And then it'll bump up a little bit if you go for the full system, so it just kind of depends on your needs and what you want. But I feel that's a kind of a great price for the performance that you're getting, and how that sort of stacks up against the rest of the market. The Sierra Designs was a little bit cheaper. Some of the popular backpacking quilts like the Enlightened equipment, some of those are quite a bit more expensive. If you look at a lot of the popular hunting sleeping bags like a Stone Glacier Chilkoot, in a similar temperature rating is close to $500 something. They're higher end, super ultralight Western mountaineering sleeping bags pushing $600. So as you get to that really ultralight, high performance stuff, the prices just absolutely skyrocket. So I think performance to price to weight ratio, Zenbivy is doing pretty good. Now if you just look at the weight on this particular model, it is a little bit heavier than a lot of other stuff, but it's much bigger than what you're getting with some of those others. So this particular quilt actually has more material, and that was a kind of a trade-off I was willing to make, to have that extra material, to have that, especially the width, so that when I'm turning, when I'm sleeping on my side, I have enough material to cover my back, and still have that material reach the ground, seal everything off, and keep me nice and warm. So if you look at comparable sizes in terms of the sleeping bag and that sort of thing, you'll see similar weights. But if you're just looking purely at weight, the Zenbivy does pack a few extra ounces to provide that comfort. There's no point in sacrificing comfort just to save a few ounces. So I think that really rings true in a hunting scenario. I think a lot of us, we definitely want to cut weight wherever we can, and make sure our packs are as light as possible. But at the end of the day, you got to be comfortable out in the mountains. You got to get good sleep. If you don't, you're going to cut your hunt short. I know I've done that before myself. So being comfortable, having a good night's sleep is super important. And this Zenbivy Light Quilt really gets the job done for me. So highly recommend this product. I've been super happy with it. I'm interested to try out the full system when I have the opportunity, see how that goes. But if I'm only ever just using the quilt, I think I'm happy enough with that. For me, the price point, the performance, it all makes sense. So yeah, highly recommend. Definitely check it out. If you're interested, hit the link in the description. Help support the channel. I really appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.